Welcome to the Bronx African American History Project Hip Hop Edition. I'm Lionel Spencer, and today I am honored to have here a good friend, former XXL staff writer Christopher Minaya. Welcome to the Bronx African American History Project. So, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, man? It's been a while. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I had to bring you out in all this rain.
Yeah, man. I wasn't predicting the rain, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I was
happy to be here.
It was crazy driving over here, but I'm grateful that you were able to make some time and come and us be able to talk, because you're just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to hip hop, with your experience and just the way that you think about music is something I've always appreciated and respected. So I was like, I need to have this conversation with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Feelings mutual.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So I wanted to start with just like, where were you born and when?
I was born in 1987, September 26, in the Dominican Republic. I came here to New York. I came to New York when I was 3 years old, so that's 1990. But I didn't end up in the Bronx till 2000, 2001.
Wow.
So
what brought you to the Bronx?
What brought me to the Bronx was my mother. She ended up getting a job near University Avenue in the Bronx, and she ended up coming here in 99 or 2000. I met up with her, and I came back to the Bronx probably 2 years later. I ended up staying with my oldest sister in Brooklyn because she was still living there, and I didn't want to move to the Bronx just yet. But that was, long behold, what was in store for me, because my mother was like, after like 1 or 2 years, she was like, nah, you have to move to the Bronx. You can't stay over there no more. So ended up coming to the Bronx a little later.
Brooklyn, Bronx, which one you like more?
I mean, at this point, I've lived in the Bronx more. But, I'm big on Brooklyn in terms of just that's my childhood. That's where I grew up. That's where all my memories are. Not that I don't have memories here, but, the fondest memories, the most with family are in Brooklyn. Because that's where we don't have any family here in the Bronx. It was just like my siblings, my mother, all my cousins and stuff in Brooklyn.
Okay. Dope. Well, we want to talk about some music. We want to talk about hip hop, which is something that we both love.
Yeah.
So, what was your introduction to hip hop? Like, what is your earliest hip hop memories?
Earliest, I can't tell you in chronological order. I could just tell you in lump sum. My foundation of hip hop is Ready to Die and All Eyes on Me by Tupac. Those were the only two albums I listened to that I had access to for like 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's all I had. That's all I listened to. That's my whole foundation.
No radio?
No radio. Did not. I still don't listen to the radio. I never was into radio, even though I spent time at High 97. But I never listened to radio. It was just those 2 hours for 4 years. And music videos, it was only a few music videos. I remember glimpses of, Busta videos, but I distinctly remember the I'll Be Missing You video and the Crossroad video by Bone Thugs. Those were, sensations. Of course, I remember glimpses of, the All About the Benjamins video and things like that. It was big. Those videos were big back then. Not that they're not big now, but that's what I remember from back then, were music videos in those 2 hours. I don't think I've ever felt confident. My first moment of confidence in hip hop was 2001, 2002. The clips were just coming out. I was in junior high school. We just ended up moving to the Bronx. I just ended up moving to the Bronx, sorry. And I remember my brother telling me, which was my everything in terms of hip hop. I got all my music from him. I didn't have any money. You know what I'm saying? So I remember him telling me that I was right about the clips. You got this right. You got this one right. That was the first time he ever said that to me. And that was with the clips.
So you put him onto the clips?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I put him onto the clips, and that was my first, okay, I know what I'm talking about moment in hip hop. And from then on, it spirals to, Jeezy, of course, Cassidy, Lloyd Banks, and etc. But before that confidence I had, I was listening. I ended up eventually getting to Jay-Z Dynasty, DMX. DMX's first 2 albums, particularly his second album, because my brother had that album. What else? 2000 was also Marshall and Nelly. I remember Marshall and Nelly. Those were huge years for them.
Is that Nellyville?
No, that's Country Grammar.
Okay.
They dropped the same year. And I remember being, infatuated with both albums. Like, quietly, Nelly has one of the best mother-loving songs in hip-hop. Marshall is Marshall. Everybody knows who he is and what he's done for hip-hop. But, yeah, those were my origins.
So you spent a lot of time with Ready to Die and All Eyes on Me.
That's it.
And nowadays people don't spend that much time with music. You listen to one album, you probably done with it within a week maybe.
Yeah.
And then you're looking for something else.
Yeah.
So did spending that much time with those 2 albums, does that like play a role in where you would rank them if you had to come up with your top 50 albums?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean no. And for my personal favorites, yes. But I can be objective and say like Marshall Mathers, LP, where does that rank? I know where it ranks personally. Where does it rank officially? Like those are 2 separate lists for me. So I've always been able to distinct the 2. In no way is Fabulous top 10, but he's in my top 10.
Gotcha.
So I can always differentiate between what is actually great and what is my favorites.
Which one do you think is better?
Between who?
Ready to Die or
Ready to Die. I mean, it's hard to compare the 2 because Ready to Die is of course just one disc.
I mean, it's like 18 songs though, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, but discs don't even really exist that much anymore. But Ready to Die, it's just I knew, and I also have memories with Ready to Die. I was there during the East versus West, Brooklyn versus LA type of thing, and I have memories with Ready to Die. I remember, I don't know why I'm troubling with it right now, but I remember, I think it was Gimme the Loot when he said, telling Biggie did it, what the F he's gonna do, and I remember I was like 8 years old. I was like maybe like 7 to 8 years old, and I was like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do if Biggie robs you? Because I'm just believing all this to be like not a story, just actual narration, him being autobiographical. And my brother was like, I'm gonna do something to him back, and I was like, you'll fight Biggie? It was like you're gonna fight Captain America in my head. It was like what? Like and then and it helped me long term. Because then I realized these aren't real life stories all the time. These are writers. These are authors, and that helped me develop a lot. But nothing against All Eyes on Me. All Eyes on Me is a classic. There's nothing wrong with that album.
Yeah, when you said those 2 albums, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like that is like.
Yeah, I mean, it's
right during that time.
Yeah, it was then, and that's all I had. And also because, and in all honesty, and everybody has these little fictional stories. Same way they make up. Oh, I've been a fan of the Miami Heat before LeBron came. Like, stop. It's that stories. But I remember distinctly, Reasonable Doubt. I remember when Reasonable Doubt dropped before it got hot, and I was just too young. I couldn't catch the similes, the metaphors. I couldn't understand what he was saying, in terms of in the literary sense. But I obviously caught up. That's why my favorite Jay-Z album, my first favorite Jay-Z album, was Hard Knock Life. The Hard Knock Life, it was just a hit single. It was a radio single. Radio singles don't exist now anymore either. But I understood the structure. I understood the metaphors. I understood all the words and all his points, as opposed to Reasonable Doubt, where everything was just going over my head. That's why it took me so long to get to Jay-Z.
So what would you say is your earliest memory of like Bronx hip hop?
Bronx hip hop, my earliest memory of Bronx hip hop was probably, the same as everyone is Big Pun.
Everyone. Yeah. If you lived in the Bronx, you were exposed to Bronx hip hop before Big Pun. There are plenty of people who want Big Pun.
I can't remember Fat Joe before Big Pun. I remember of Fat Joe, but I thought he was more of a producer, A&R at best. He wasn't. Even though I now know his whole story, and I know his whole career, but at the time I didn't see him as a rapper. I just saw him as a curator of sorts. So Big Pun was my first. It had to be is either that or KRS-One, but I can't remember exactly when I listened to Criminal Minded, which is my favorite Bronx album that I could think of. At least at the moment. That's my favorite at the moment. Was Criminal Minded, but Criminal Minded dropped in 87, 88. So I don't remember the exact year I listened to Criminal Minded, but it was around the same time I listened to Pun, which is both, after 2000. Because prior to 2000, it was just Ready to Die and All Eyes on Me.
You were trapped in a basement listening to those two shivering.
Man, that's all we had, man. That's all we had.
So what was it about Big Pun that, because Fat Joe did come out before, KRS was out before, people like Lord Finesse, but what was it about Big Pun that stood out to you?
Honestly, nothing. I'm not really a Big Pun fan at all. I'm not a fan. It's just I knew he was from the Bronx, and it was almost thrown at you in a way because of his death, his untimely death, of course. That was a big time. No, I ain't even gonna say no pun intended. But Big L also died. All of these people were dying at the same time. And it was a sorrow time in hip hop. It was a dark time in hip hop, and I remember his death more than him being alive, unfortunately, because it was that almost monumental. In comparison, Nip has had a bigger, Nipsey Hussle has had a bigger, impact in terms of post-death, it seems, but it was the death was more organic because everywhere you go outside you were hearing Big Pun songs. That's when it was put out to me that who Big Pun was and where he's from.
Yeah, I got put on to Pun from my older brothers. I was more into R&B, and my brother, so I'm listening to Boyz II Men and all that kind of stuff, and my brothers were heavy into hip hop. Yeah. And rap and all that. And one of my brothers specifically, he was just Big Pun till the death. He just loved Big Pun. It was one brother loved Nas, Nas could do no wrong. Right. Another brother loved Big Pun. Pun was the greatest thing. Yeah. And so, I think I learned about Big Pun from my brother. I didn't necessarily, I don't know if I liked him when I heard him. I still wasn't fully kind of into hip hop. I was just more cool it now. I'm listening to New Edition. I'm listening to, Michael Jackson. I'm look, I'm on my pop R&B soul stuff. Right. But yeah, Pun was an amazing talent for the Bronx. And I was thinking about this, in preparing for our sit down, and I was just thinking the last several big names out of the Bronx have been what do you call them? Latinx artists, right? You got Pun, Joe, Remy, and Cardi. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why do you think that's so? What do you think? We coming from Boogie Down Productions. We coming from fantastic. Grandmaster Flash, Fantastic 5, I believe it is, Funky 4+1, right? And then it's 90, I think 93 is when Fat Joe drops Represent, I think it is. And then it's even Lord Tariq and Peter Guns had a moment.
Yeah. No, in terms of why there's more, I mean, I just think it's just a matter of the demographics. It's just the area more Latinos move to the Bronx. You know, growing up in Brooklyn, I was the only Spanish kid on my block. You know, and even moving to the Bronx, you know, in the Bronx, especially the West Bronx, is so close to the Washington Heights. I just think it's the influx of that. You know, it's kind of like when everything finishes up in terms of the justification of the Bronx, which has already started, they're trying to call, you know, South Bronx Port Morris now. When the gentrification ends, where is everybody going to go? These people who don't make even $30,000 a year, they make 20 or less. You know, where are they going to go? They're going to end up in either, I don't know, from what I heard, there's gentrification going on in Jersey, so they're probably going to go to PA. And then it's probably going to be, you know, just based on pure demographics, there's going to be more rappers coming out of PA in the next 20 years. You know, that's my only guess for that. And, you know, it's just the influx of people from the borough.
I feel that. So I want us to talk a little bit about your time at Double XL. You know, okay. you were a staff writer there for a while. What did you do there?
My time at Double XL. I mean, I started as an intern. I didn't know anybody over there. I just wrote like a cover letter type of thing, and they the managing editor, and I think she was the associate editor at the time. She ended up reaching out to me. They hired me on the spot. I was the only interviewee that asked questions. I remember that. So shout out to Amber and Eric. You know, I'm still cool with Amber to this day. Eric, you know, I wish I were wherever he's at. But he left really quickly after I got there. He spent maybe 3 or 6 months there. So I didn't get to know Eric as well. But yeah, I mean, it started interns transcribing. I hate transcribing to this day. I hate transcribing interviews, man. But it's like, I just started doing everything from eye candy, whatever I could get, posting songs, going to shows, doing reviews, doing interviews on site, doing interviews outside, off site, if needed, going to listening parties, which was more exclusive and back then, and it was an interesting thing to do, to be around. You know, that's when I first met Sway. That's when I first met Rob, and I met Rob Markman a couple times, and you know, things of that nature, and be able to see how they react to things, see what they're picking up on, you know, just learning from them and just learning. I mean, but all my learning came hands-on from the Double XL staff. That was Mark, Jesse, Adam. You know, I even learned from Shaheem during his time there. He was editor at large at Shaheem Reed. So he would just sprinkle in the office a couple times. Sean, Malcolm, you know, yeah, we still talk every now and then. He does that eye candy for In Issue, and he also used to do King Magazine. He did it right after Bonsu. He's from Brooklyn. We connect a lot. And like what I can remember most during my time, that it depends what you want to know. But one of the things I remember is breaking down verses. I remember every year they would do, in March, a Biggie issue. And one of the things we did for the site one time is rank the top 50 Biggie verses.
Wow.
And I didn't know, like, you know, we always come to the routine of, you know, you rank a rapper, you rank albums, type of thing. You may even go really, if you want to be real technical and stuff, you'll rank songs, you know, but you never will rank verses. You never be that intricate, you know. And I remember going through, you know, Biggie verses, like it was just one verse at a time, and trying to distinguish which one is the better verse between those two, and how does it stand against the other ones. You know, it was definitely a learning experience. I never thought about it that way. And I definitely learned a lot, you know, from that experience, and just all my time there, which was great. I have nothing I regret about Double XL. You know, it was a great learning experience. You know, and I got to do what I set out to do super early. I was pretty young. I was 2011. I was like, let's say 22, 23. So it was when I cared about it, and it's when I wanted to do it, and it all kind of just lined up for me.
Best interview?
Best interview I did?
Yeah.
Best interview I did. That's tough. That's tough, man, because man, that's a tough. I mean, I interviewed Styles in Juices for Life, and I now live in that neighborhood, which is funny. But I interviewed Styles in Juices for Life, and that was great. I remember interviewing homeboy Sandman, who's quietly one of the best lyricists out. He's from Queens. I interviewed Big Sean. That wasn't the longest interview, but it was humbling because he wanted to do the interview. He made time to do the interview. His publicist or manager or whatever was trying to get him out the door and get him going. But he took out the time and did the interview. So I remember that. So, but, you know, the interview itself wasn't that long because he was being pressed. I don't know. I mean, there was a lot. I did a lot of interviews, but I have a lot of memory. I think the two longest, the two ones I remember the most is Styles and what's his name? I did Juvenile too. Juvenile, that was dope. Juvenile hit home. That hit home to one of my earliest memories because I was a huge Lil Wayne fan, and it was because of a Juvenile song that he was on. And Lil Wayne didn't even rap. He just ended his song in the music video. And I had the Hot Boys Guerrilla Warfare bootleg. You know what I'm saying? So I remember that meant, you know, it was really dope. You know, I got to sit down with him for a while. So I can't rank. If I had to pick one, I guess it would be the Styles one, just because how kind of full circle that one turned out to be. But you know, I had a lot of great ones that I just probably can't think of right now on the spot. But that was the best.
When writing there, how many Bronx artists would you say you interviewed?
I don't think I interviewed none. I interviewed. I did Mano. Mano's from the Brooklyn. Styles, like I mentioned. Juvenile, Big Sean. Who else I interviewed? Man, I wish I had mine. And I've been meaning to do this. I've been meaning to like put together like a portfolio because I don't remember things I wrote, that well. But yeah, I don't think I interviewed any Bronx artists. I didn't interview French. I did not interview, and French was really the only one. It was just French, and Fred the Godson that I could think of. I interviewed.
That you interviewed?
That interview.
You interviewed those two?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, those were just the two that I could think of on the spot. I interviewed, A$AP Yams and Rat King. They're both New York. I don't know where Rat King's from, but I don't think they're from the Bronx. And I think A$AP Yams, rest in peace. He's from Harlem, from what I understand. I just can't remember exactly.
Mm. I was looking up. I saw this little, did a little bit of research for you. I want you to take a look at this. These are some of the albums that came out when you was working at XXL. I think Pete Rock, you got Lord Finesse released an album, KRS-One.
Yeah.
Kool Keith, he seemed like, he put out an album like every single year. I was like,
same.
this dude is real consistent.
Yeah.
Most of them, I think Sadat X.
Yeah.
I mean, from your knowledge, do you know French Montana came out with Excuse My French in 2013.
Yeah.
Was that like a big around the office?
Yeah, it was big. I mean, he ended up getting my second year at XXL, he became a freshman, which was funny because I've known a French living in the Bronx from his Cocaine City days when he was just hosting the DVD. And he would always try to kick in a freestyle or a song within the DVD so people would get noticed. So I've known about French since probably 2003, 2004. but he ended up becoming a freshman like in 2011, 2012, which was I first got the XXL at September of 2011. So he was big. He was big there, but in terms of Sadat got love in terms of putting some of his songs up on the site. Everybody else, they were just completely off the radar. You always pay tribute and give respect to KRS-One, but not that I can remember. There was nothing like, there was no feature pieces that I can remember or anything like that now.
Mm-hmm. If you had to describe Bronx hip hop, what would you say?
Bronx hip hop. I mean, Bronx. If I had to say Bronx hip hop, it's almost foundational. It's almost mythical at this point, because of how few actually know about it and are told about it. The Bronx hip hop is everything. Hip hop is from the Bronx. It comes from 1520 Cedric Avenue. It started there in 1973, I believe, with Kool Herc. It means everything. Without the Bronx, I hope hip hop would eventually have been created, but that can't be proven. So hip hop is foundational, is base, is the Bronx forever.
When you think about, so when you say foundation, I'm assuming you're talking about the past in hip hop.
Yeah.
What do you think about present day Bronx artists or present day Bronx hip hop?
I mean, present day, it's completely different. Because when you think about today, you're thinking about, Don Q, thinking about High Bridge, the whole movement, A Boogie Kid. And that's kind of it. Hell Rel was around for a little bit. He's from Weeks Ave with the Diplomatic scene, but that was, at least 9 years ago, 10 years ago, So everybody else kind of sprinkles in. The only two are really those two and, Cardi, of course, but Cardi's not like repping the Bronx super hard. She just kind of reps kind of like New York, being hood and et cetera. But, A Boogie, them putting High Bridge, the label, highlighting the Bronx. People didn't even know High Bridge was in the Bronx, So when people Googling High Bridge, then they realize, oh, that's in the Bronx, that's where they're from. They're kind of putting that in their forefront. So it's not the deepest roster, but then again, I don't think that's at fault to the Bronx. I just think that's just hip hop has grown that much. I mean, hip hop just within New York alone, there's notables in every borough, essentially. So hip hop, the Bronx couldn't keep up and couldn't stay at the forefront, forever, unfortunately. But it doesn't compare to the past. You can't. It would never live up to the past, and that's kind of just the gift and the curse of it. When you, like, everybody knows about Kool Herc, Grandmaster Caz, Furious 5, The Flash, but at the end of the day, everybody also knows about A Boogie, but there's also no ties between them because it's just the song structure is different. They're so based on, A Boogie is so based on melodies, no bars. Grandmaster Caz, for instance, was just bars. That's all he was trying to do was bars. Have the best set, the best, and produce the best tape. And also, it's just the Don Q kid, he doesn't stand out that much. He resembles too many rappers. It's never a great thing when, constantly people are saying, oh, you remind me of
Styles P. The Lot.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. So
the hood rappers of the night.
So even though they're both talented in their own ways, it's just different. It's like they don't have appeal. I mean, by all in like A Boogie within the last year has really died down, as opposed to when he first came out. He was just everywhere. But now with Cardi, now with everybody else that's out and hot, it's hard to stay on top for more than a year. Regardless of where you're from.
I mean, I was looking up some Bronx artists.
Yeah.
More like new. I would assume most of them came out after your time at XXL. So Cardi's one of them. A Boogie, that girl you put me on to, Tish Heyman, Malibu Mitch. You heard of Malibu Mitch?
I didn't.
Little TJ, Don Q, Mike, Fred the Godson, Dream Doll, and then I don't even know how to say it, XL Leon, and Smokey Magila. I would have thought somebody like Fred the Godson would have had like a better run because he's actually like a lyricist. Yeah. Dope. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I feel like he didn't, I don't know, I feel like his it's like he's hood famous, so to speak, you know?
I mean, honestly, Fred the Godson is quietly probably, you know, one of the top 10 lyricists out right now, you know. But at the same time, lyricism doesn't mean as much anymore. And I don't think lyricism ever really meant that much, you know, and it doesn't age as well as good music does. Mm. At the end of the day, you know, when you think about lyrics, you know, if it's not under the right beat, that's been the detriment to every great lyricist. That's why people don't know who, you know, Immortal Technique is, or Papoose, or they know Papoose from VH1, you know. You know, is all that thing is because, you know, melodies is just so important. And I don't think that's appreciated. So to his detriment, you know, I actually was really appreciative of his project Gorilla Glue that he did with Heatmakers and Joel Ortiz, because I think Joel Ortiz knows how to make songs and Fred the Godson doesn't. And that's just a matter of beat selection, which has everything to do, of course, with rhythm, and then also, you know, melodies. You need to have melodies, and you need to be a melody if you can. And that's who probably goes the farthest.
Hmm. So as we're gonna conclude this interview, if you had to say the Bronx needs to A, B, or C in order to not reclaim its throne, but to have more of a presence in hip hop, what would you say Bronx artists need to be doing?
Bronx artists need to try to, if anything, be themselves, not trying to emulate, because that kind of limited, you know, like for instance A$AP Rocky from Harlem. He came with he had a kind of a southern sound with which his use of being chopped and screw beats and things of that nature, and not limited, because that's catchy initially. Oh, he's from Harlem. Oh, I thought he was from the South, and then you found out he's from Harlem. You know you play his tape, it's pretty good, but then after that, there's not much to be said, you know. Because he wasn't, but at the end of the day, he was being true to himself because he was exposed to some way, somehow, I'm sure. I don't really know his story. But the Bronx needs to, you know, I think all artists just need to soak in their identity and try to add melody to it. You know, the melody is just so underwhelmingly overlooked that they don't understand, like, and they either go too far, like A Boogie does, that is just all melodies, or they don't have melodies pretty much at all, like Don Q. It's kind of finding a balance between both of them, and it's just like, I mean, Young Guru's, you know, broke it down pretty well, maybe 2 or 3 years ago in terms of tension and release. Like when he was breaking down how people don't really appreciate the acapella Black album. It's like, you have to think about it. It's like people can learn a lot, especially aspiring artists, that his Jay-Z was the melody in a lot of the songs, if not all the songs. Like you got to think about monotone, and then you have to think about the artist and how he's reciting the rhymes. Because if you say having girl problems, but BA1, blah blah blah, that's not what he was doing. He was creating a melody within his own voice. If you having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but A1 hit me. You know, he's creating the melody. It's tension and release. He's creating that within his own voice. Then the drums and everything else helps. But his own voice, he's creating melodies. You know, and then you could be too melodical, like I said, like A Boogie. But the tension and release in terms of melodies is primal to all artists, especially, you know, the Bronx, because the Bronx is too much infatuated with, you know, the 90s hip hop, the golden era, so to speak. When in all actuality, you really go back, and I recently, as you know, went back and I started looking at with the top 50 lists, and I started hearing old albums. Those albums don't really age well. A lot of those albums don't, and that's because of, you know, RZA beats. You listen to RZA beats now, it's not as great as, you know, other producers like, you know, Soundwave and TDE, or, you know, I'm not saying, you know, one is better than the other, but I'm just saying it doesn't age out so well because of the lack of melodies and the emphasis on lyricism. But, you know, as it's told, that's the golden era. So they kind of, I guess, I feel like the Bronx is too attached and too trying to reincarnate that era, and it's never going to be that. The lifestyle is different, the environment is different, the people within the community are different. It's not the same. You know, there was a time where the Bronx was burning, like literally burning. There was a time where the Bronx streets were much rougher. This is not the case now. There's shopping centers in the Bronx. There's gentrification in the Bronx. Freaking Mos Def, Yassine Bey owns 2 art galleries in the Bronx. You know, it's a different time period, you know, as opposed to then. So them trying to attach to an era that's not theirs in a community environment that they don't understand, that they didn't live, it translates to the low quality in the music.
It sounds like you're saying we need to do what Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five was doing, because they had heavy like melody in their music, I think a good balance of like the melody and the rapping. So you're saying like we need to just kind of go back to,
right,
or maybe not go back. Well, the Bronx needs to probably go back, but that currently in hip hop, they've continued that legacy of having that balance.
I mean, yeah, but cast the Furious Five, you know, every group you can think of from that era, you know, whether it be the Fantastic Five, you know, it doesn't matter. They were being symbolic of their surroundings. The hip hop was birthed almost kind of out of necessity. It's just maximizing your resources. So hip hop is the breaks. It's just the breakdown is the pattern in the song where there's no singing, or back then, you know, it was disco and R&B and soul and everything else. Just like jazz, they improvise. That's what it's famous for, and it's improvisation because of what? The saxophone. The saxophone used to be in orchestras, but it was not a well-used piece. So in jazz, they're like, all right, you guys aren't using that, so we're going to use that, and we're going to make this genre. It's the same with hip hop. So it was just those little breaks in the song where there will be no instrumentation, and they would just loop it over and over and over. You know, that's where hip hop comes from. It's just being resourceful. You know, so that's what they were doing. That was the 1970s and the 80s in the Bronx. You know, it was a necessary time to be creative, and that's what they had to do. And also, they had access to a lot more samples. You know, clearing samples was much easier. So being melodic was much easier. So you guys have less samples. Be aware of your surroundings. If anything, you know, everybody always debates, you know, Nas or Rick Ross's authenticity. But at the end of the day, they're great narrators or authors of their area. Why is it that they have to live out what they're actually rapping about? That has nothing to do with it. But you know, when you listen to Illmatic, you know what 1994 in Queens was. And the same thing goes for, you know, Rick Ross in Carol City, aka Miami. You know, as long as you get a feel, because all music is about is the tension and release in the melodies to drive a factor of emotion. So if you don't have no emotional attachment, it doesn't mean, oh, I went through that in my life. But if you hear a song and it makes you feel something, then that's a hit song. You know, and things are just are told wrongly in terms of a lot of aspects, like the energy. Like that's a high energy song. There's no such thing as high energy. You can feel hype because there's energies that produce hype. There's energies that produce sadness. It's all about, but it's all really same emotions, right? There's no such thing as, oh, that song got good energy. It can have good energy if it makes you sad, you know, because it's in evoking that emotion. This person that you don't know and is talking about his life or her life is able to draw you emotionally. That's the energy you're getting from the song, you know. So in a lot of respects, Grandmaster Caz, as talented as he was, and everybody else, and Kool Herc and he being innovative, and Coke Rock being his MC, and there weren't even MCs really. It was all music, and it was just having fun because at the time the Bronx was burning, and just it was just the Bronx was in peril, so they needed something to uplift the community. That's why Kool Herc did the party. That's why Grandmaster Flash did his parties. That's why African Bambaataa is who he is. Planet Rock is just music. It's just innovation. He's not a lyricist. He's not a rapper. He's just a DJ. But he knew it was necessary, and it's unfortunate that these artists of today in the Bronx don't realize you don't have to be like him. You don't have to sound like them. You have to sound like, or at least have the music resemble yourself or your community. And you have access to a lot more things than they did. And you have access to fewer samples. So, just be as resourceful as you need to be. And honestly, you don't have to be that resourceful. You have access to anything. You can make your own beats at home now. You can upload your own music now. You can, what I'm saying? The first hip hop song is from Jersey, Rapper's Delight. And those guys aren't rappers. At the end of the day. But hey, the ladies, they ended up doing their song and they just ran with it. But that's also why Wonder Mike and everybody else from the whole crew don't get the love they should, because they weren't authentic.
So I like what you said. You said, make the music resemble yourself and your community.
Yeah.
I respect that. Man, thank you so much for stopping by, for us having an opportunity to talk, man. And I look forward to us building some more.
Hey, man, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.